It's John Mackett here again here at the Tirconaill Tribune with the weekly podcast with Declan Kerr and Eamon McFadden, and it's been a busy week really in many regards nationally, given that the National Children's Hospital controversy is not going to go away anytime soon. You know, have you any views on that there? This debate is really around ownership versus leasing. The Sisters of Charity here and there, they divested their interests to a holding group who in turn leased to the government. It's very, very contrived. But Michael Martin is projecting the fait accompli that for a tenner a year for 300 years, it's effectively ownership. The truth is,
but effective is ownership
is not qualified here.
Yeah.
And
there is a landlord, and that is the Sisters of Charity, because if they find over the years, can you imagine where we've come from in the last 300 years, even in the last 30 years? As far as women is concerned, they haven't got a great deal in Ireland. A lot of it's been down to the religious orders. And that's why there are concerns there, and they're probably well-founded concerns, but the government wants to bat that all down. So does Leo Varadkar. But I mean, the nuns are a pretty wealthy outfit.
Big landowners and all that, and they have the sites of...
And you can see at that Dáil committee today, the concerns that are being raised by the likes of Breed Smith and others are still concerned about that.
People are just not accepting that.
You see, down the road, we don't know what new developments will come along. We don't know what science will throw up by way of procedural issues insofar as reproduction is concerned, and how that might run contrary to the ethos of the Catholic Church. And if you're the landlord, if you have a house rented from somebody and you're throwing a big party, and the landlord discovers that there's issues going on there that couldn't be or shouldn't be accepted or wasn't in the lease, he can throw you out. It's basically, in a very crude way, the same applies here, although this issue has been kicking about for the guts of 10 years. Hollis Street Maternity Hospital is there forever, down in Marion Street. It's old, it's dilapidated, it's unfit for purpose. Does that justify just rushing headlong into this now? Because I suppose it's a fact, most people are saying now that Michael Martin is more concerned about the legacy that he's going to leave as Taoiseach, albeit in a very short time, than he is about going into the nitty-gritty of these kind of things. You know.
And the opposition being that it's they want a clear separation of church and state, and people would still see it as a throwback to that old kind of almost like a bygone time now in some ways. But if they're the landowner, they need to kind of get that clarified. You know, in
the
terms
nuns are going to be in there. I mean, the nuns are definitely not on the run.
Not on the run.
I mean, those sites that they own out of Ellen Park and Dunleary are worth about 600. I think the Sisters of Charity are worth about 680 million. So they're not short a bob or two.
No, and I know prime sites in other cities too.
You might think that the whole ethos of religion is disappearing fast, but they still have a very powerful grip.
Yeah.
But you know, at the end of the day, the Vatican is the superior power there.
Yeah. But even by the virtue of what they own, the assets they own, it would make them just a very powerful figure if they were even in business terms or land ownership terms. Like, you know, they're on prime sites.
Why has the government not gone out to a greenfield site and just done a clean deal to purchase land?
Got away completely from any...
Everything that they seem to get into in this government, and this is pretty poor record, they'd be cutting a turf bank. There's a row about that.
And you have the Children's Hospital.
The Children's Hospital is
some fiasco there.
Is a disaster insofar as funding and costs are concerned. Now, the maternity hospital had an estimated €800,000 price tag. I would say with inflation, that has probably well exceeded the million at this point. And by the time it's finished and up and running and operational and fitted out, it could easily double that. But listen, we'll leave that sit there. We'll just stay on the issue of medical issues at the moment. Brain drain fear as Glyn quits, but hold on to stay on longer. Many people will not be breathing a sigh of relief. Roland Glyn was the face to many of the public view on the COVID pandemic.
Yeah,
he left it, and
he delivered a lot of the media.
He was very, very good he had a very good persona in dealing with the media.
Was he thrust into the spotlight there as well with Tony Hoolan's temporary departure?
He wasn't authoritative in any way, yet he was very definitive in getting his point across, because you remember we had an interview with him in the media here last year. He was not delivering any answers that you didn't already know. He was talking down the clock for that hour from the minute he came on, but he did it in the nicest, friendly way that the Chief Medical Officer, Tony Hoolan, could never do. Because Hoolan had this, he had an air of authority about it. Maybe it comes with the job. Chief Medical Officer is a very, very difficult job, and handling a pandemic for the first time in the history of the state was never going to be an easy one.
Seems to be lots of speculation about why Ronan Glenn is going, and I suppose at the end of the day, there any substance to any of the stuff that they're saying, that they were getting a lot of flack, even still, as post COVID and all that sort of stuff. But he's moving to a job, a very lucrative job now in the private sector. Where
professional development for him, you'd think, or something.
EY is who?
It seems to be the health division of Ernst & Young, who are have branches and various types of consultancy, and it's a consultancy role is the one he seems to be going to. So whether that's now becoming an advisor on policy or what, I don't know. But it's
supposed to be for a high 6-figure salary later in the year. Is this going to be bigger than Joe McHugh's pension, I wonder?
I would say it might be.
Be double it, word?
By all accounts,
close.
Now then.
Age it out.
Yeah.
We're going to look at something else here. Well-known councillor buys a bank in Milford. So there's a new force in Irish banking in Milford's industrial quarter.
There is.
That's amazing.
Yes.
The financial centre.
The Milford, the financial district of Milford.
Yeah.
Just down the road from us here on the main street. It's been confirmed that Councillor John O'Donnell is the proud new owner of the bank. That was the former National Irish Bank, just on the junction there, just opposite the Travellers.
Managed the Friday afternoon out down to lodge money in it when Jim Gregg was manager, after we started here 35 years ago. Always a very welcoming place to go into, but it's long since gone. Just in the interest of progress, both the big banks in Milford.
It's kind of like one of the landmark buildings of the town, though, wasn't it? Really?
It still is, actually.
It's very imposing. It's a pretty substantial building.
It's a great location.
3 stories, it seems.
Maybe we should congratulate John O'Donnell on his initiative on coming into Milford and buying it from under our noses.
Well,
those who kept our wallets closed might be regretting this, because he has big plans for it, hasn't he?
Oh, he has. He has. It's not unfortunately going to return as a bank. It would appear now that the 3-story building is going to be turned into a series of apartments, possibly 3 luxury apartments, just on the main street there. So that's what it's a prime location, and that's what he seems to be setting his sights on, to maybe breathe a bit of life back into the residential part of it.
That seems to be the way to go at the moment, doesn't it?
Well, I suppose.
Provided you can get permission from the county council.
Well,
because John has already tried to get permission for 3 units of accommodation in Molly's and Rathmullen, and that hasn't been all sweetness and light, because they're only going to give him or offering him permission for 2, and he's not happy about that, of course. Given that John can't get beyond that, what hope is for the rest of us? Given that he's a
well, the target for this is 3, so it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah,
and it's on the main street in Milford, which needs a major...
Needs life breathed back into it big time.
And I suppose there's talk about a town plan.
There's talk about a town plan. This would be a very, very good kickstart to bringing people back into the town. But there will be obstacles put in the way, no doubt about that. Not put in the way, but issues of parking is going to be raised there. It doesn't have any parking. It doesn't have any parking of its own.
Yeah.
And I would say the change of usage to apartments might be looked at from that point of view, as to see there is a car park close by, just there off the bypass. Whether that's acceptable or not, I don't know, but we'll wait and see how that one's going to develop. Declan, you've been reminiscing this week with 3 well-known footballers.
Yes.
Ian McGarvey and Father Willie McMenamin and
Joe Duffy. Yeah.
And Joe Duffy.
Yeah, I brought them back to Swilly Park 60 years after they played in the semi-final there against the Dublin side Glenmore, which they won, and went on then to Dalymount Park on the 13th of May, which is just 2 days away now. 60
Does Ian
years ago.
McGarvey remember much about that, given that it was 60 years ago?
Well, listen, I suppose memory does fade a bit in terms of that, but
there's one thing that hasn't faded is Ian's memory.
Well, there's certain things that he does remember. He remembers even the 53 final, so yeah, you could say that he...
Those are the 3 remaining players from that era, is that right?
No, there's not. There is others too. Father Dan O'Doherty would have been on that team.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and there's a couple of the Derry men, and there's a man from Buncrana, Mickey Houghton Doherty. Johnny Moore and Liam Blake and Letterkenny as well is still there.
Was Mickey Houghton Doherty the referee in later times, or was he?
I don't
or
know.
Him up with
No, I think it might be somebody else.
Right.
But no, there's quite a number. The late Brendan Duffy would be one of the late Brendan Duffy was part of that team. But there's most of that team are still with us, believe it or not. And you have Ian McGarvey heading for his 92nd birthday. Father Woolley is heading for his 88th, and Joe is 84.
Are you able to confirm that Ian's going to be contesting the next local elections?
I can't confirm that, but my gut feeling is I haven't heard otherwise.
You can't deny it, like.
I can't deny it, no.
That'll lead us nicely into politics. Declan Meehan, who has been much speculated about, even since last year, as the new candidate for Fine Gael. Could it be the local elections? Could it be a general election? Anyway, Meehan has talked to us today. In the Tribune, he says Meehan says no to Fine Gael, and we're just speculating that maybe Leo Varadkar's visit to the Milford IRD office last Friday was much less than a charm offensive to meet potential election candidates. Declan Meehan has totally ruled out joining any party. He's not going to join Fine Gael. He's just not a party politician. He doesn't even know where the story came from. He has never been asked directly about it by sources in Fine Gael. He has talked vaguely about the elections to me, but not in any particular sense of party, or indeed, he has such a busy schedule at the moment. He's very much involved in looking after the Ukrainian group of 42 people who are living here in town.
Worker.
Very, extremely hard worker. But
was that word circulating anywhere in the Fine Gael reams that about Declan Meehan being a possible?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I didn't hear from anybody else. He was seen as the answer to getting the Fine Gael seat back in the Milford area, and probably then in the past week with Joe McHugh's news of his retirement, it was then been linked into the potential of would he be a good candidate, and against all that, he brushed shoulders with the Taoiseach on Friday in Milford, and I suppose Declan saw that from his own point of view. Given that he has absolutely no big interest in Fine Gael or Fianna Fáil or Sinn Féin or whatever other mainstream parties are there. He might be a candidate the next time, provided time allows that. It's too early to think about. I would say we'll go back to him in about a year's time. In the meantime, we'll try and give his head a wee bit of peace and put the whole idea to bed that he has any intention of joining Fine Gael. I know they'll be fiercely disappointed. And
a week on, is there any... I suppose it's only a week on from Joe McHugh's announcement. Is there anything more in terms of a potential candidate? Or?
Well, the Tribune has been asked to interview a candidate. I feel that is a wee bit premature, given that the election could be 2025, and given that other developments may happen in the meantime. For instance, the census. The primary or the results will be available around early autumn. That will give a clear view of what boundary changes might be needed, not only across the county from a Dáil election point of view, but the local boundaries will also be subject to change. Remember that we went from a 10-seater to a 3, where we now stand. Fine Gael lost out in 2014 in a 10-seater when Noel McBride only managed to get 4.8% of the vote there. And Fine Gael has a long way to climb to get back up there, but there will be boundary changes. Fine Gael will be very hard pressed. I mean, the main agenda there has to be, is there a candidate that you can identify with? If somebody name checks a candidate to you and somebody says, Jesus Christ, who in the hell is that? Then you don't have a chance. So if you put out a candidate's name that might be living in Bundoran or Ballyshannon or somewhere else outside the constituency, or even up in Mallinhead, if they're not instantly recognisable to you and me, they don't have a chance.
Yeah.
Candidates today, because it is high pressure to get your name on the ballot paper, but to get notice, you have to be a well-known figure in some sphere. And Fine Gael don't have well-known figures in the constituency, or indeed that I'm aware of it outside of it. You know, I'm not too sure where Fine Gael is going at the moment. I'd like to wish them well, but I think there's a bit of naivety there that, you know, that we have a ready-made candidate and probably living in Dublin. And that's fine in Dublin, even though it's Paschal Donahue's constituency. I mean, that doesn't give two flying fiddles worth to their being known in Donegal.
They're putting the spotlight back on some of their local councillors again.
But is it really?
You know, that's the question, I suppose.
They have 3 councillors in the constituency, and Barry Sweeney is in Ballyshannon, he's in the Sligo constituency. But there will be a lot of talk. The constituency will Donegal's population will have increased, possibly from 160 up to maybe 172, 173,000. You could have an electorate, an adult electorate over 18 years of age in the region of say 125,000. That's kind of 10-12% up on the last time. So what might happen easily there now, people are going back to the notion that we could have 2-3 seaters. Boundary commissioners are not in favour, they're not at all favourable disposed towards 3 seaters. But you could have an additional seat in Sligo Leitrim by eating a bit more into Donegal southwest as they did previously up into Donegal town, Glencolmkill and all that whole Glenties area. Because Sligo Leitrim has had a very checkered history. They've hardly ever voted for the same constituency twice in their lives. So like that is something further down the road. So in the meantime, all we can sort of do is wish Declan Meehan well in whatever path he chooses in politics or otherwise. And in the meantime, we wish Fine Gael every luck in the world as they begin to search for another candidate that might replace him. We're going to look at something else. Eamon, you are looking at something.
I think there's a.
Have we got this all upside down?
No, well, it doesn't matter. We'll go with the flow. Go with the changing times, because that's what's going on in Chrysler now.
Big changes in Chrysler.
It is. You know, after the post office now is, we all know the pressure the post office system has been under nationally and locally and all that for numbers of years, and closure of so many of these what would be seen as a cornerstone of kind of rural life. You know, your post office is a major part of that. The one on Chrysler's Main Street that's been in operation there with the Lafferty family since 1900 will close its doors at the end of business on Friday. 1900. I think that's the 6th generation now that's currently.
Long time.
And yeah, absolutely. And but the good thing, I suppose, in terms of the community is that they're not losing the post office service. It is going to relocate, and come Monday morning it will reopen out at the Chrysler supermarket just around the corner. It's staying within the service, and it's staying within the family now. It's a different generation now taking it on. So that will be a big end of an era for Grace Cannon and our sister Anne-Marie, who would be mainstay figures in the village life for so long, and the service they brought to the place. And that will be the end of it.
Nice story, and we'll wish them well.
We'll actually delve into that a bit more, and I think maybe next week I'll go on now for the last day and then see. You know, just maybe, and there's a great amount of history in there. You know, between the old phone exchange and all this kind of different things over the last one.
Many of the last day the Tribune has been out in the last 30 years of post office closures. The last one was out probably in Churchill 3-4 years back, maybe or more. And it's never ending, the closures now.
Dunfanaghy and places like that, we'd covered them.
Just as a side to that whole thing, Tom McCallan of the Independent Postmasters Group is addressing the Fianna Fáil Parliamentary Party this evening for I think about 90 minutes, around 5:30. And it's going to be interesting because Tom has been pioneering the whole idea of community banking from Australia or from New Zealand and Germany. There is no obvious reason why we shouldn't be doing community banking other than the fact that ever since the property crash, all the banking in the country is regulated through the Central Bank of Ireland. There was a Dow motion adopted, believe it or not, in 2016 to go with the flow and get community banking up and running. And every last member in the Dáil voted in favour of it. Of course, it was never heard of since. Tom McCallan has been batting that lid for a long time, and he deserves more support than he's getting, actually, because the idea is that post offices, maybe like next year, there's new contracts and there are new developments coming up that could see 200 post offices close, and by 2025 a further 400 are under threat. So you have the likes of Chrysler continuing under a new roof. Likewise, Ramelton that is happening in July. For post offices, they face huge challenges, given that people are being encouraged by the postal authorities themselves to go online.
Mm-hmm.
So once you start going online, the majority of pensioners, I would say a fair whack of them, are online, and that's a big loss, because I think from next year there's going to be no salaries as such. Your income is going to be derived from transactions only, and that is going to be a huge negative one.
Yeah.
A lot of people in the post office business see their legacy going the same way as the banks, where towns and villages all had a local bank.
An outlet, it's gone.
But we have gone over time. We're going to suffer penalty points here. Our lead story today deals with anger as Rally Service moves to Letterkenny, as a huge row brews over the decision by the organisers of the Donegal International Car Rally to take the service park away from Milford to a new base in Letterkenny. And this has been met with a very angry reaction, total negativity and disbelief by the general public. That's a big story in the Tribune this week. Please go out and buy it, because with the kind of times that's in it, we need every last cent that we can earn. Talk to you next week.